When God is deafeningly silent. Lessons for Enduring Unanswered Prayers. By T.M. Light. Description. This book explores the profound journey of faith during moments of unanswered prayers and spiritual silence. This motivational guide helps readers navigate doubt, delay, and uncertainty, while discovering hidden growth, divine redirection, and inner resilience. Through real life and biblical examples, the book teaches how to trust the unseen, strengthen belief beyond feelings, and embrace the sacredness of waiting. Perfect for anyone seeking spiritual guidance, hope, and encouragement, it offers practical tools for prayer, reflection, and enduring faith. Transform silence into purpose, patience, and profound spiritual growth. Chapter Outline. Introduction: The Silence That Shakes Faith. Chapter 1: When Heaven Feels Closed. Chapter 2: The Theology of Silence. Chapter 3: Faith Beyond Feelings. Chapter 4: The Waiting Season. Chapter 5: When Doubt Creeps In. Chapter 6: The Hidden Work of God. Chapter 7: Unanswered Prayers and Redirection. Chapter 8: Learning to Listen Differently. Chapter 9: Staying Spiritually Grounded. Chapter 10: Trusting the Bigger Picture. Conclusion: When Silence Becomes Sacred. Introduction: The Silence That Shakes Faith. There comes a moment in nearly every believer's life when the silence becomes too loud to ignore. It is not the silence of peace or stillness, but a heavy, echoing quiet that follows desperate prayers. It is the kind of silence that lingers after you have poured out your heart, after you have asked, pleaded, waited, and nothing comes back. No sign. No answer. No clarity. Just silence. At first, it feels temporary. You tell yourself to be patient, that answers take time, that perhaps you simply need to wait a little longer. But as days turn into weeks and weeks into months, something begins to shift inside you. The confidence you once had in your prayers starts to weaken. The certainty that someone is listening begins to feel less secure. You find yourself asking questions you never thought you would ask. Is God really hearing me? Did I do something wrong? Why does it feel like I'm being ignored? This experience is far more common than most people admit. It is shared in quiet conversations, hidden behind polite smiles, and buried beneath rehearsed expressions of faith. Many people feel it, but few speak about it openly. The truth is, the silence of God has shaken the faith of countless individuals across generations. It has unsettled the strong, confused the devoted, and tested even those who once felt unshakable. What makes this silence so difficult is not just the lack of answers, but the emotional weight it carries. Doubt begins to creep in, slowly at first, then more persistently. Fear follows closely behind. You start to wonder if you are alone in your struggle, if perhaps others have figured something out that you haven't. Confusion clouds your thoughts, making it harder to discern what is true and what is simply your own anxiety speaking. And sometimes, beneath all of it, there is anger. A quiet frustration that grows into a question you may feel guilty for even thinking. Why would a loving God remain silent when I need Him the most? These emotions are real, and they are valid. They do not make you weak, and they do not make you faithless. They make you human. The mistake many people make is believing that these feelings disqualify them from having faith, when in reality, they are often part of the very process that deepens it. One of the most damaging misconceptions about silence is the belief that it means absence. When nothing is heard, it is easy to assume that nothing is there. When prayers seem to go unanswered, it is natural to conclude that they are unheard. But silence does not always mean absence. In many areas of life, silence can carry meaning that words cannot. It can signal patience, intention, or a work that is unfolding beyond immediate visibility. Yet when it comes to faith, we often forget this and rush to fill the silence with fear-driven conclusions. The challenge, then, is not just enduring the silence but learning how to interpret it. What if silence does not mean God is distant, but that He is working in ways we cannot yet see? What if the absence of immediate answers is not rejection, but preparation? These questions are not easy, and they do not erase the discomfort of waiting. But they open the door to a different perspective, one that transforms silence from something threatening into something meaningful. If you are in a season where God feels distant, where your prayers seem to rise but never return, you are not alone. Countless others have walked this same path, feeling the same uncertainty, wrestling with the same questions. Some have found their way through it, with a deeper, more resilient faith. Others are still searching, still waiting, still hoping for clarity. Wherever you find yourself in this journey, know that your experience is shared, and your struggle is understood. This book is not here to offer quick answers or easy explanations. The reality is that silence, especially divine silence, rarely fits into simple formulas. Instead, what you will find in these pages is a journey, a path that explores what it means to hold on to faith when certainty fades, to endure when answers delay, and to grow in ways that are often invisible in the moment. We will explore the nature of silence, and why it appears in the lives of those who believe. We will confront the difficult emotions that arise when prayers seem unanswered, and learn how to navigate them without losing ourselves. We will examine how faith can exist beyond feelings, how waiting can shape character, and how what feels like silence may actually be part of a deeper conversation. There is also a greater purpose woven into this journey. Growth often happens in places we would never choose, in seasons we would rather escape. The silence you are experiencing may not be empty at all. It may be filled with unseen work, refining, strengthening, preparing you for something you cannot yet understand. While this does not make the silence easier, it gives it meaning. And meaning has a way of transforming how we endure. Endurance itself is a central theme of this journey. It is not passive waiting or reluctant acceptance, but an active decision to remain, to trust, to continue even when clarity is absent. Endurance is what keeps faith alive in the absence of evidence. It is what allows hope to exist in uncertainty. And it is often in endurance that the deepest transformations take place. As you move through this book, you may not find all the answers you are looking for. But you will find something just as important, a framework for understanding your experience, a renewed perspective on silence, and the strength to continue forward even when the path is unclear. The silence that shakes your faith does not have to destroy it. It can deepen it, reshape it, and anchor it in something far more resilient than feelings or immediate answers. What feels like the breaking point may, in time, become the foundation of a stronger, more enduring belief. So if you are standing in the quiet, wondering if anyone is listening, hold on. This is not the end of your story. It may not even be a pause. It may be the beginning of something deeper than you ever expected. Chapter 1: When Heaven Feels Closed. There are moments in life when it feels as though heaven itself has shut its doors. You pray with sincerity, with urgency, with faith that has carried you through other storms, and yet this time something feels different. The words leave your lips, but they seem to vanish into an endless void. No reassurance follows. No sign appears. No answer comes. It is in these moments that the silence does not just surround you, it confronts you. The emotional shock of unanswered prayers is something few people are ever prepared for. Faith often begins with stories of breakthrough, of divine intervention, of prayers answered in ways that are unmistakable. You grow up believing, or perhaps you come to believe later in life, that prayer is a direct line, a connection that guarantees response. Not always the response you want, perhaps, but a response nonetheless. So when that expectation is suddenly disrupted, it does more than confuse you. It shakes you. At first, you may try to explain it away. You tell yourself that maybe you need to pray harder, believe stronger, or wait a little longer. You revisit your words, wondering if you said something wrong or missed something important. You examine your life, searching for hidden faults, questioning whether something you did has created this silence. The mind becomes restless, trying to solve what feels like a spiritual puzzle. But as time passes and nothing changes, the questions deepen. What makes this experience so difficult is not just the waiting, but the contrast between what you expected and what you are living. Faith, for many, is built on the understanding that God is attentive, responsive, and present. You expect to feel guided, to sense movement, to recognize answers when they come. But reality does not always match that expectation. Instead of clarity, there is confusion. Instead of reassurance, there is uncertainty. Instead of answers, there is silence. This gap between expectation and reality can feel like a betrayal of everything you believed. It can make you question not only your prayers, but your understanding of God Himself. If God is loving, why would He remain silent? If He is present, why does He feel so distant? These are not small questions. They strike at the core of faith, challenging the very foundation on which it stands. And then comes the feeling that is perhaps the hardest to admit, the sense that the silence is personal. That somehow, it is directed at you. Silence, when prolonged, begins to feel like rejection. It whispers thoughts that are difficult to ignore. Maybe you are not worthy. Maybe you have been overlooked. Maybe your prayers do not matter as much as you thought they did. These thoughts are not always loud, but they are persistent. They settle quietly in the background, shaping how you interpret everything that follows. Rejection is painful in any form, but when it feels like it is coming from God, it carries a unique weight. It is not just emotional, it is spiritual. It makes you feel disconnected, not only from answers, but from the very presence you once relied on. The relationship that once felt close now feels distant. The confidence you once had begins to fade. And in its place, uncertainty grows. But what if this interpretation is not entirely accurate? What if the silence you are experiencing is not rejection, but something else entirely? This is one of the most important shifts you can make, though it is not an easy one. Because when you are in the middle of the silence, it feels real. It feels personal. It feels final. But feelings, as powerful as they are, do not always tell the full story. Throughout history, there have been countless individuals who experienced what could only be described as closed heavens. People of deep faith, strong conviction, and unwavering devotion, who still found themselves in seasons where God seemed silent. Their stories remind us that silence is not a modern problem, nor is it a sign of failed faith. It is a part of the spiritual journey that has been walked by many before you. Consider the experience of Job. Here was a man described as righteous, faithful, and devoted, yet he found himself in a season of unimaginable loss and suffering. He prayed, he cried out, he questioned, and for a long time heaven seemed silent. His pain was not immediately answered. His questions were not quickly resolved. He sat in the tension of not understanding, of feeling abandoned in the midst of his suffering. And yet, his story did not end in that silence. What he experienced was not rejection but a process, one that would eventually reveal something deeper than he could have imagined. Or think about David, who wrote openly about his struggles in the Psalms. Again and again, he expressed feelings that many people are afraid to admit. He spoke of feeling forgotten, of crying out without answer, of wondering how long the silence would last. These were not the words of someone without faith. They were the honest expressions of someone whose faith was being tested in the silence. And yet, even in his questioning, there was a thread of persistence. He continued to speak, to reach, to believe, even when he did not fully understand. Even Jesus Christ, in one of the most profound moments recorded, cried out with a sense of abandonment. In that moment, the silence was not just external, it was deeply personal. It shows that the experience of feeling unheard, of feeling alone in the silence, is not foreign to the spiritual journey. It is, in many ways, part of it. These examples are not meant to diminish your experience, but to place it in a broader context. The silence you are facing is not a sign that something has gone uniquely wrong in your life. It is part of a pattern that has existed for generations. And while that does not make it easier, it does make it meaningful. There is also a personal dimension to this that goes beyond stories and examples. You have your own moments, your own prayers, your own situations where you needed an answer and did not receive one. Perhaps it was a prayer for healing that did not come, a door that did not open, a situation that did not change despite your persistence. These moments stay with you. They shape how you see future situations. They influence how you pray, how you hope, how you believe. It is important to acknowledge these experiences without rushing to explain them away. Too often, people try to cover the discomfort of silence with quick answers or simplified explanations. But real faith does not require pretending that the silence is easy. It requires the courage to face it honestly, to sit with the discomfort, and to continue forward even when clarity is absent. The truth is, when heaven feels closed, it challenges you to redefine what faith really means. Is faith only strong when answers come quickly, when clarity is immediate, when outcomes are favorable? Or is faith something deeper, something that can endure even when none of those things are present? This is the question that silence forces you to confront. In many ways, this is where faith begins to mature. It moves beyond expectation and into endurance. It shifts from being dependent on outcomes to being anchored in something more stable. This does not happen overnight. It is a process, often a difficult one, but it is also a transformative one. You may not see it now, especially if you are in the middle of a silent season, but something is happening within you. The questions you are asking, the struggles you are facing, the persistence you are developing, these are not signs of failure. They are signs of growth. They are evidence that your faith is being stretched, deepened and refined in ways that would not be possible without the silence. This does not mean that the silence will last forever, nor does it mean that answers will never come. But it does mean that this season, as difficult as it is, has value. It is shaping you in ways that will matter, even if you cannot yet see how. When heaven feels closed, it is easy to assume that the story has ended. But often, it is in these very moments that a new chapter is beginning. One that is not built on easy answers or immediate responses, but on a deeper, more resilient form of faith. So if you find yourself in this place, where your prayers seem to echo without reply, where the silence feels heavy and unrelenting, do not lose heart. What you are experiencing is not the absence of God, but a part of the journey that many have walked before you. It is not rejection, even if it feels that way. It is an invitation, though a difficult one, to move beyond what you expected and into something deeper than you imagined. Heaven may feel closed, but your story is not. Chapter 2: The Theology of Silence. There is a moment in every prolonged season of waiting when a difficult realization begins to take shape. What you are experiencing is not new. The silence that feels so personal, so isolating, so uniquely yours, has in fact echoed through the lives of countless people across generations. It has been felt in different lands, in different circumstances, by individuals who stood where you now stand, hoping, praying, waiting, and wondering why heaven seemed so quiet. At first, this realization can feel unsettling. You may have hoped your situation was temporary, an exception rather than part of a pattern. But there is also something deeply reassuring about it. If silence has been experienced before, it means it can be understood. If others have endured it, it means you can too. And if it has appeared consistently throughout spiritual history, then perhaps it is not a flaw in the system of faith, but a feature of it, one that carries purpose, even if that purpose is not immediately clear. When we look at the broader landscape of spiritual history, silence is not an anomaly. It is woven into the fabric of faith itself. There have been long stretches of time where answers were delayed, where clarity was withheld, where people had to move forward without the reassurance they desperately wanted. These were not moments of abandonment, but seasons that required a different kind of trust, a trust not rooted in what was heard but in what was believed. Consider the story of Abraham. He was given a promise that seemed both extraordinary and impossible, yet the fulfillment of that promise did not come quickly. Years passed. Time stretched on. The gap between what was promised and what was experienced grew wider with each passing season. In that gap, there was silence. Not the absence of God's presence, but the absence of visible progress. Abraham had to live in that tension, holding on to a promise he could not yet see, trusting in something that had not yet materialized. His journey reminds us that silence often exists between promise and fulfillment, not as a sign that the promise has failed, but as part of the process that leads to its realization. Or reflect on Joseph, whose life took a series of unexpected and painful turns. Dreams were given, but their meaning seemed to vanish as he faced betrayal, imprisonment, and years of uncertainty. There must have been moments when he questioned everything, when the silence felt overwhelming, when the connection between his present reality and his earlier vision seemed completely broken. Yet the silence did not erase the purpose of his life. It was part of the path that led him to it. Even entire communities have experienced what could be described as collective silence. There was a period often referred to as the intertestamental period, a span of hundreds of years between the writings of the Old and New Testaments, where no new prophetic voice emerged. For generations, people lived without the kind of direct communication they had once known. And yet, history did not stop. Purpose did not disappear. What seemed like silence was, in many ways, preparation for something significant that would unfold later. These examples begin to reveal an important truth: silence is not random. It appears too consistently, too meaningfully to be dismissed as coincidence. It follows patterns, emerges in critical moments, and often precedes significant transformation. This does not make it easy, but it does make it purposeful. One of the most challenging questions to wrestle with is why silence appears at all. If God is capable of speaking, guiding, and responding, why choose silence? Why allow seasons where clarity is withheld, where answers are delayed, where presence feels hidden? The answer is not simple, and it cannot be reduced to a single explanation. But part of it lies in the nature of growth itself. There are certain things that can only develop in the absence of immediate answers. Trust, for example, takes on a deeper meaning when it is exercised without visible confirmation. Patience is not truly formed when everything happens quickly, but when waiting becomes necessary. Endurance is not built in moments of ease, but in seasons of uncertainty. Silence creates space for these qualities to grow. It removes the immediate feedback that we often rely on, and invites us to operate on a different level of faith. This is not about blind belief, but about a deeper, more resilient trust, one that is not dependent on constant reassurance. There is also a relational aspect to silence that is often overlooked. In human relationships, constant communication is not always the measure of depth. There are moments of quiet, of distance, of unspoken understanding that still carry meaning. Similarly, the silence you experience in your spiritual life does not necessarily indicate a breakdown in the relationship. It may reflect a shift in how that relationship is being experienced. This brings us to a crucial reframing. What if silence is not accidental but intentional? What if it is not something that happens because something has gone wrong, but because something is unfolding according to a purpose you cannot yet see? This perspective does not eliminate the discomfort of silence, but it changes how you interpret it. Instead of viewing it as rejection, you begin to see it as part of a process. Instead of assuming absence, you consider the possibility of hidden presence. Instead of feeling forgotten, you begin to explore the idea that you are being prepared. Intentional silence carries a different weight. It suggests that there is meaning behind what you are experiencing, even if that meaning is not immediately accessible. It invites you to trust that there is more happening beneath the surface than you can perceive. This is not an easy shift to make. It requires letting go of certain expectations, particularly the expectation that clarity should always come quickly. It requires embracing uncertainty in a way that feels uncomfortable. But it also opens the door to a deeper understanding of faith, one that is not confined to moments of obvious connection, but extends into seasons of quiet. As you begin to see silence as part of a larger pattern, something within you starts to change. The questions may still be there, but they are no longer as overwhelming. The waiting may still be difficult, but it is no longer meaningless. The silence may still feel heavy, but it is no longer empty. You begin to recognize that you are part of a story that is bigger than your current moment. A story that includes seasons of clarity and seasons of confusion, moments of response and moments of silence. And in that story, silence is not the end. It is a chapter, one that plays a crucial role in shaping what comes next. This understanding does not come all at once. It develops over time, often through experience rather than explanation. You may find yourself looking back on previous seasons of silence and seeing them differently. What once felt like absence may reveal itself as preparation. What once seemed like delay may turn out to have been perfect timing. These realizations do not erase the difficulty of those moments, but they add depth to your understanding of them. There is a quiet strength that begins to emerge when you accept that silence has a place in your spiritual journey. It is the strength to continue without constant reassurance, to believe without immediate evidence, to trust without full understanding. This strength is not loud or dramatic. It is steady, resilient, and deeply rooted. And perhaps this is one of the most powerful aspects of silence. It shifts your focus from external confirmation to internal conviction. It moves you from needing to hear in order to believe, to choosing to believe even when you do not hear. This is not a lesser form of faith. In many ways, it is a deeper one. The silence you are experiencing is not a sign that your faith is failing. It may be a sign that your faith is being invited to grow. Not in the way you expected, not in the way you would have chosen, but in a way that will ultimately make it stronger. So when you find yourself in the quiet, when the answers you seek do not come as quickly as you hoped, remember that you are not standing in unfamiliar territory. You are walking a path that has been traveled before, a path that has shaped the lives of those who came before you in profound ways. The theology of silence is not about explaining away the difficulty. It is about understanding that the difficulty has meaning. It is about recognizing that silence is not outside the scope of faith, but within it. And it is about embracing the possibility that what feels like absence may, in fact, be a different kind of presence, one that is working in ways you cannot yet see. In time, the silence that once unsettled you may become something you understand more deeply. Not because it becomes easier, but because you begin to see it differently. And in that shift, you will discover that even in the quiet, your journey is still unfolding, your growth is still happening, and your story is still being written. Chapter 3: Faith Beyond Feelings. There is something deeply human about wanting to feel certain. We long for reassurance, for clarity, for emotional confirmation that what we believe is real and reliable. In many areas of life, feelings act as signals, guiding our decisions and helping us interpret our experiences. When we feel peace, we assume we are on the right path. When we feel uneasy, we pause and reconsider. Over time, it becomes natural to depend on these emotional cues. In matters of faith, however, this dependence can become fragile. Because feelings, as powerful as they are also inconsistent. They rise and fall with circumstances, shift with time, and are influenced by things we do not always understand. There are days when faith feels strong, when belief comes easily, when the presence of God seems undeniable. But there are also days when those feelings disappear without warning, leaving behind a quiet uncertainty that can be difficult to navigate. This is where many people begin to struggle. When faith has been built primarily on emotional experiences, the absence of those experiences can feel like the absence of faith itself. If you no longer feel what you once felt, it is easy to assume that something has gone wrong. You may begin to question whether your belief was ever real, or whether it has somehow weakened over time. But the truth is, faith that depends solely on feelings is always at risk. Not because feelings are unimportant, but because they are not designed to carry the full weight of belief. They are part of the experience, not the foundation of it. The danger of relying only on emotional confirmation is that it ties your faith to circumstances you cannot control. When everything is going well, when life feels aligned, when answers come quickly, your faith feels strong. But when challenges arise, when prayers seem unanswered, when silence replaces clarity, those same feelings begin to fade. And if your faith is anchored in those feelings, it begins to fade with them. This does not mean there is something wrong with you. It means you are being invited into a deeper kind of faith, one that is not dependent on how you feel in a given moment, but on what you choose to believe despite those feelings. Learning to trust without visible evidence is one of the most difficult aspects of spiritual growth. It goes against instinct. It challenges the natural desire for proof, for confirmation, for something tangible to hold on to. We are taught from an early age to rely on what we can see, measure, and verify. Faith in its deeper form asks us to move beyond that. This kind of trust does not ignore reality. It simply acknowledges that reality is not always fully visible. There are things happening beneath the surface, processes unfolding beyond immediate perception, outcomes developing in ways that cannot yet be seen. To trust without visible evidence is to believe that what you cannot see is just as real as what you can. This does not come easily. It requires a shift in perspective, a willingness to let go of the need for constant confirmation. It asks you to hold on to belief, even when there is no immediate reward for doing so. It is, in many ways, an act of courage. Consider the journey of Thomas, often remembered for his doubt. When he heard that Jesus Christ had risen, he struggled to believe without physical evidence. He wanted to see, to touch, to confirm for himself. His response is one that many people can relate to. It reflects the natural desire for certainty, the need to experience something directly before fully accepting it. Yet his story also highlights an important truth. While evidence can strengthen belief, it is not the only path to it. There is a deeper level of faith that goes beyond what can be immediately verified. It is not about ignoring evidence, but about not being entirely dependent on it. This is the kind of faith that begins to take shape in uncertain seasons. When answers are delayed, when clarity is absent, when feelings are inconsistent, you are given the opportunity to strengthen your belief in a different way. Not through constant reassurance, but through consistent trust. Strengthening belief in uncertain seasons is not about forcing yourself to feel something you do not feel. It is about choosing to remain, to continue, to hold on to what you know even when you do not feel it. It is about remembering past experiences, not as a way to recreate feelings, but as a reminder of what you have already seen and understood. There will be moments when doubt tries to take hold, when the absence of feeling makes everything seem uncertain. In those moments, faith becomes less about emotion and more about decision. You decide to trust. You decide to believe. You decide to continue, even when it would be easier to step back. This is not blind faith. It is not ignoring reality or pretending that everything is clear when it is not. It is a conscious choice to anchor yourself in something deeper than your current emotional state. It is recognizing that feelings are temporary, but truth is not. Over time, this kind of faith becomes stronger, more stable, less easily shaken. It is not dependent on the highs and lows of emotional experience. It is rooted in something more consistent, more enduring. It allows you to navigate seasons of silence without losing your sense of direction, to face uncertainty without losing your sense of purpose. There is also a quiet confidence that begins to develop when you learn to trust beyond what you feel. It is not loud or dramatic, but it is steady. It does not require constant validation, because it is not built on constantly changing conditions. It is grounded in a deeper understanding, one that is not easily disrupted. This does not mean that feelings no longer matter. They still play a role. They still bring moments of joy, of connection, of reassurance. But they are no longer the foundation. They are part of the experience, not the measure of it. Faith as a decision, not just a feeling, is one of the most empowering shifts you can make. It places the strength of your belief in your hands, rather than leaving it at the mercy of circumstances. It allows you to remain steady, even when everything around you feels uncertain. This kind of faith does not remove challenges, but it changes how you face them. When you no longer rely solely on how you feel, you are less likely to be overwhelmed when those feelings fluctuate. You are able to continue moving forward, even when the emotional support you once depended on is not there. It is in these moments that faith becomes something more than an experience. It becomes a commitment. A choice you make again and again, regardless of how you feel in the moment. A decision to trust, even when you do not fully understand. A willingness to continue, even when the path is unclear. And in that decision, something powerful happens. Your faith begins to deepen. It moves beyond the surface, beyond the temporary, into something more lasting. It becomes resilient, able to withstand the silence, the waiting, the uncertainty. You may not always feel strong. There will be days when doubt feels closer than belief, when questions feel louder than answers. But even in those moments, the decision remains. You can still choose to trust. You can still choose to believe. You can still choose to move forward. This is what it means to have faith beyond feelings. It is not the absence of emotion, but the presence of something greater. It is the ability to stand firm even when your feelings shift, to remain anchored even when the waves rise. If you are in a season where your feelings no longer match your faith, do not be discouraged. This is not the end of your belief. It may be the beginning of a stronger, deeper, more enduring kind of faith. One that is not easily shaken, because it is not built on what comes and goes, but on what remains. So when the feelings fade, when the reassurance is absent, when the silence feels heavy, remember this: your faith is not defined by how you feel in this moment. It is defined by what you choose to believe, by the decision you make to continue, by the trust you hold on to even when it is not easy. And that kind of faith, the kind that endures beyond feelings, is the kind that carries you through anything. Chapter 4: The Waiting Season. There are few experiences in life that test us as deeply as waiting. Waiting is often uncomfortable, frustrating, and even painful. It stretches time into what feels like an endless continuum, forcing us to confront our own impatience, our fears, and our limitations. In spiritual life, waiting is not merely an inconvenience, it is a crucible for growth. It is in the waiting season that faith is tempered, character is shaped, and the unseen foundations of our lives are laid. Waiting challenges our understanding of time. We live in a culture that prizes immediacy, instant results, and quick gratification. We are accustomed to pressing buttons and receiving instant responses, to tracking progress and measuring outcomes within hours or days. But spiritual waiting does not conform to these standards. God's timing is rarely constrained by human expectations. It is deliberate, precise, and often incomprehensible to our impatient minds. When we pray for guidance, for healing, or for breakthroughs, it is easy to feel abandoned if the answers do not arrive on our schedule. The silence becomes loud, the days stretch, and the heart begins to wonder whether the effort was in vain. Yet waiting is not merely a pause, it is a necessary phase of growth. Every moment spent waiting is an opportunity to cultivate qualities that cannot be rushed or manufactured. Patience is one of the first lessons waiting teaches. Patience is not simply enduring time, it is maintaining trust and hope when the outcome is unknown. It is the ability to remain steadfast without visible assurance, to continue believing even when circumstances suggest otherwise. Patience is born in the tension between desire and fulfillment, between longing and realization. Without waiting, there is no context for patience to grow. Endurance is another essential gift of the waiting season. Endurance is the strength to persevere when progress is invisible, when challenges persist, and when obstacles seem insurmountable. It is the quiet determination to continue walking faithfully, even when the heart grows weary. Endurance is not developed in moments of ease, but in seasons when perseverance is required. Every unanswered prayer, every delayed blessing, and every moment of uncertainty adds to the reservoir of endurance within us. Maturity, too, is forged in waiting. Maturity is not simply the accumulation of knowledge or experience. It is the ability to navigate life with wisdom, perspective, and depth of understanding. Waiting teaches us discernment. It forces us to separate fleeting desires from enduring needs, to prioritize long-term growth over immediate satisfaction, and to trust that the challenges of today are shaping the person we are becoming. Maturity is the product of reflection, endurance, and the internal transformation that occurs when life does not move according to our timetable. One of the most important distinctions to understand in the waiting season is the difference between delay and denial. Delay is temporary. It is a postponement that does not negate the ultimate outcome. It is a season in which preparation, growth, and alignment are taking place behind the scenes. Delay requires patience, endurance, and continued trust. Denial, on the other hand, is permanent. It is a refusal, a closed door, a definitive no. It is natural to confuse the two, especially when waiting is prolonged. The heart may assume rejection when the answer has only been delayed. Recognizing this difference is critical, because it allows you to maintain hope and remain steady even when the wait feels unbearable. Remaining steady during long seasons of silence is not easy, but it is essential. The first step is to anchor yourself in what is certain. While outcomes may be unclear, the character of God, the principles of truth, and the foundation of your faith remain constant. When everything else feels uncertain, holding on to these certainties creates stability. Just as a tree survives storms because of its deep roots, your faith can withstand long seasons of waiting when it is grounded in truth rather than transient feelings. Another important aspect of steadiness is developing spiritual discipline. Waiting requires intentionality. It is easy to drift into discouragement or distraction while time passes, but disciplined practices help maintain focus. Prayer, meditation, study of scripture, journaling, and reflection create a framework that keeps you connected, even when answers are delayed. Discipline does not eliminate difficulty, but it provides the structure to endure and grow through it. Perspective is also crucial in navigating waiting seasons. It is natural to measure time in days, weeks, or months, but spiritual time often operates on a different scale. What seems like an eternity to the human mind may, in divine terms, be a perfect moment for preparation. Viewing waiting as a part of a larger plan transforms the experience from frustration to opportunity. It is not wasted time, it is fertile ground for growth, insight, and transformation. The waiting season also teaches resilience. Life rarely unfolds according to plan, and unanswered prayers are a reminder that you are not in full control. Resilience is the ability to adapt, to remain hopeful, and to continue forward even when the path is unclear. It is cultivated in the repeated decision to trust, the repeated act of patience, and the repeated affirmation that your efforts and prayers are not in vain. Every moment endured strengthens resilience and equips you for future challenges. During waiting, it is natural to wrestle with questions. Doubt and fear may rise, and the temptation to give up may whisper relentlessly. But these questions are part of the process. They test the depth of your faith, force introspection, and reveal areas of dependency that need to shift from circumstance to conviction. Wrestling with doubt does not weaken faith, it can refine it, as long as it is accompanied by persistence and a willingness to trust despite uncertainty. Another lesson of the waiting season is that growth is often invisible. Just as roots of a tree develop underground before the fruit appears, much of your spiritual development occurs quietly, unseen, and uncelebrated. You may not feel different day to day, but internally change is taking place. Waiting allows the seeds of patience, endurance, resilience, and maturity to take root, even when the results are not yet apparent. Recognizing that transformation is happening behind the scenes encourages persistence and reframes the waiting period as meaningful rather than empty. It is also important to actively seek lessons in waiting. Reflection is a tool that turns silence into insight. Journaling thoughts, emotions, and observations allows you to track growth over time and understand patterns that may not be obvious in the moment. Each unanswered prayer, each delayed outcome becomes a teacher, offering insight into your character, your faith, and your approach to life. Waiting, when examined thoughtfully, can be one of the most educational seasons of your spiritual journey. Faith communities and relationships provide additional support during waiting. Sharing struggles with others who understand or have walked similar paths reminds you that you are not alone. It provides encouragement, accountability, and perspective. Even the strongest faith can benefit from shared experience, especially during prolonged silence or delay. The waiting season can also serve as a refining fire for priorities and desires. It tests what you truly value, separates what is essential from what is convenient, and exposes hidden attachments. What you long for may be reshaped in the process, and what you believe you need may evolve. Through waiting, you learn discernment, distinguishing between the urgent and the important, the superficial and the essential, the fleeting and the eternal. Ultimately, waiting is a call to active engagement rather than passive endurance. It is not about doing nothing while time passes. It is about cultivating inner strength, practicing patience, embracing growth, and maintaining hope. Waiting is a discipline, a test, and a transformative season all at once. It shapes the person you are becoming, prepares you for the answers yet to come, and deepens your relationship with God. When you understand waiting in this light, silence is no longer a void to fear. It becomes a sacred space for preparation, reflection, and growth. It teaches that life does not always unfold according to your timetable, but it unfolds according to divine wisdom. It teaches that patience is not passive resignation, but an active stance of trust. It teaches that endurance is the mark of maturity, and that the person who perseveres in waiting emerges stronger, wiser, and more resilient than before. Even when the heart grows weary and the days feel endless, waiting has a purpose. It produces qualities that immediate answers could never cultivate. It allows you to see faith as a journey rather than a series of outcomes. It teaches the distinction between delay and denial, allowing hope to remain even in prolonged silence. And it cultivates a steadfastness that carries through all seasons, ensuring that when answers finally arrive, you are ready to receive them with a heart strengthened, a mind matured, and a spirit refined. So, as you walk through the waiting season, remember that each moment is shaping you. Each unanswered prayer, each delayed response, each silent hour is forming your patience, testing your endurance and strengthening your faith. What feels like emptiness is, in reality, a sacred time of preparation. And while waiting is never easy, it is in these seasons that your character is forged, your resilience is deepened, and your soul is prepared for the fulfillment of the promises you are seeking. The waiting season is not a punishment. It is not a sign of failure. It is an opportunity, a divine invitation to grow, to trust, and to become the person God is shaping you to be. Embrace it with courage. Walk through it with hope. And know that what is taking time is also taking root, preparing the way for a harvest that is worth the wait. Chapter 5: When Doubt Creeps In. Doubt is a natural companion on the journey of faith. It is a shadow that often appears when the path is uncertain, the answers delayed, or the silence prolonged. Yet, while doubt is common, it is often misunderstood. Many believers assume that experiencing doubt means their faith is failing, that questioning God's presence or purpose is a sign of weakness. In reality, doubt is not the opposite of faith, it is often its catalyst. It is a signal that your faith is alive, wrestling with reality and seeking deeper understanding. To deny doubt is to deny the complexity of belief. To face it, process it, and use it to grow is to strengthen faith in ways that mere certainty cannot. When doubt creeps in, it often arrives quietly at first. A fleeting question surfaces: is God really listening? At first it may seem small, almost dismissible, but over time these questions can gather weight. Did I do something wrong? Have my prayers fallen on deaf ears? Why am I still waiting? These questions, when left unexamined, can grow into anxiety, frustration, and even despair. They are not signs that you have failed in faith, they are signs that you are human. Throughout history, doubt has been a recurring theme for the most devout individuals. Even those described as righteous, steadfast, and deeply faithful experienced moments when their belief wavered. David, for example, expressed his doubt openly in the Psalms, crying out for understanding while feeling forgotten. Job, despite his unwavering devotion, wrestled with the silence of God as he faced unimaginable suffering. Their stories remind us that doubt is not evidence of spiritual failure, it is evidence of engagement. It is the mind and heart seeking clarity and meaning when circumstances seem inconsistent with belief. Normalizing doubt begins with acknowledging its presence without shame. It is not a sin, nor is it a betrayal of faith. To question, to wonder, and to feel uncertain is a natural part of the human experience of belief. Denying these feelings often leads to repression, which can create confusion, guilt, or a sense of inadequacy. By recognizing doubt as a legitimate part of faith, you allow yourself the freedom to confront it openly. This is not about excusing disbelief, it is about creating space to process it constructively. The internal questions that arise during doubt are valuable. Asking, "Is God listening?" or "Did I do something wrong?" forces introspection. It encourages you to examine your own expectations, desires, and understanding of God's character. Are you measuring faith solely by visible outcomes? Are you equating unanswered prayers with rejection? Are you holding God to human timelines and standards? These questions, difficult as they may be, provide an opportunity for growth. They challenge assumptions, refine understanding, and cultivate a deeper, more resilient faith. Confronting doubt without shame requires honesty. It is the courage to admit your uncertainty to yourself, to God, and sometimes to trusted mentors or fellow believers. This honesty is not a sign of weakness, it is a sign of maturity. Pretending doubt does not exist, or masking it with forced certainty, often leads to spiritual stagnation. True faith grows when it engages with the tension of uncertainty, rather than avoiding it. Processing doubt also involves active reflection. Journaling thoughts and emotions, meditating on scripture, and engaging in prayerful dialogue can provide clarity and perspective. Reflection allows you to separate transient emotions from enduring truths. It helps you identify whether your doubt stems from temporary circumstances, past disappointments, or deeper theological questions. By examining doubt thoughtfully, you transform it from a source of fear into a tool for spiritual growth. Turning doubt into deeper spiritual inquiry is perhaps the most transformative step. Rather than allowing questions to undermine belief, you can use them to explore faith more profoundly. Doubt encourages curiosity. What does it mean to trust when evidence is absent? How can patience and endurance coexist with unanswered prayers? What lessons might the silence be teaching? These inquiries invite you to move beyond surface-level faith and into a more nuanced, informed, and enduring belief. It is also important to recognize that doubt often accompanies seasons of waiting. Silence naturally prompts questioning, because human beings are conditioned to seek immediate feedback. When prayers are delayed, when clarity is absent, or when expectations are unmet, the mind instinctively searches for explanations. This search is not inherently negative. It can lead to deeper self-awareness and a more sophisticated understanding of God's ways. Faith that survives doubt is stronger because it is tested. Just as gold is refined in fire, belief that endures questioning becomes purer, more resilient, and more anchored. Doubt exposes weaknesses in understanding, prompting examination, reflection, and growth. It challenges superficial reliance on emotions or circumstances, redirecting faith toward enduring principles and deeper conviction. Those who embrace doubt constructively often emerge with a more mature and balanced spirituality, capable of withstanding trials and uncertainties with grace. Another essential aspect of navigating doubt is maintaining connection to core spiritual truths. While feelings fluctuate and questions arise, certain realities remain constant. God's character, His promises, and the principles of faith do not change based on emotional states or temporary uncertainties. Anchoring in these enduring truths provides stability when doubt threatens to destabilize belief. This is not a denial of uncertainty, but a conscious decision to hold on to what is known even when everything else feels uncertain. It is also vital to avoid isolation during seasons of doubt. Sharing struggles with trusted mentors, spiritual leaders, or supportive communities allows perspective, encouragement, and accountability. Being open about doubt does not diminish faith. It validates the shared human experience of wrestling with uncertainty. Others who have walked similar paths can offer wisdom, reassurance, and guidance, demonstrating that doubt does not preclude growth or resilience. Doubt also invites a re-evaluation of expectations. Often, our questioning arises from unmet assumptions, that prayers should be answered immediately, that life should align perfectly with our desires, or that God's presence should always be perceptible. By examining these expectations, we can adjust our understanding of faith from transactional to relational, from outcome-focused to process-oriented. Doubt encourages humility, reminding us that human perception is limited and that divine wisdom operates on a scale beyond our comprehension. One of the most profound ways doubt contributes to faith is by deepening intimacy with God. When questions and uncertainty are brought honestly to Him, prayer becomes more than a recitation of requests. It transforms into a dialogue of the heart. Doubt fosters authenticity, stripping away superficial expressions of faith and revealing the raw, honest desire to understand and connect. This authenticity strengthens relationship, because faith rooted in real engagement is more enduring than faith based solely on convenience or comfort. It is also important to recognize that doubt can inspire growth beyond belief itself. By wrestling with uncertainty, you develop critical thinking, spiritual discernment, and emotional resilience. You learn to navigate complexity, to hold space for tension, and to operate with patience. These skills do not emerge in easy seasons. They are cultivated precisely when faith is challenged and clarity is absent. In this way, doubt becomes a teacher, guiding not only your spiritual life but also shaping your character, wisdom, and perspective on life. Doubt is not permanent. While it may feel overwhelming in certain seasons, it is often a temporary state that evolves into understanding and deeper conviction. By confronting doubt intentionally, reflecting on its origins, and turning it into inquiry, you transform a potentially destabilizing force into a catalyst for spiritual maturity. What once seemed threatening becomes a tool for growth, a mirror reflecting areas of dependency and assumptions that need refinement, and a gateway to more resilient faith. It is also essential to embrace patience with yourself during periods of doubt. Progress is not always linear. Some days you will feel confident, anchored, and connected. Other days uncertainty will rise, and fear may attempt to dominate your perspective. Both experiences are part of the same journey. Faith is not measured by the absence of doubt, but by the commitment to continue seeking, trusting, and engaging honestly, even in the presence of uncertainty. Ultimately, the creeping of doubt is not a barrier but a doorway. It invites you to move beyond surface-level belief, to wrestle honestly with questions, and to engage with faith in a deeper, more transformative way. When processed constructively, doubt refines belief, strengthens resilience, and cultivates intimacy with God. It challenges assumptions, expands perspective, and nurtures maturity. If you are currently facing doubt, do not despair. You are not alone, and you are not failing. Doubt is part of the spiritual journey, a natural, even necessary companion that pushes faith to grow beyond comfort, beyond ease, and beyond certainty. Embrace it, confront it, reflect upon it, and allow it to guide you toward a richer, deeper, and more enduring belief. Faith is not the absence of questions. It is the commitment to continue seeking answers, trusting in the unseen, and remaining connected even when clarity is delayed. Doubt, when navigated with honesty and intentionality, becomes not an enemy of faith, but its catalyst. It is the spark that lights the path to understanding, maturity, and spiritual depth. In the moments when doubt creeps in, when the mind questions and the heart hesitates, remember this: you are not weak, you are not failing, and you are not abandoned. You are being invited to a deeper engagement, a fuller understanding, and a stronger, more resilient faith. Doubt is part of the journey, but it does not define the destination. Faith persists, grows, and ultimately triumphs, not in the absence of questions but through them. Chapter 6: The Hidden Work of God. There are seasons in life when it feels as though nothing is happening. You pray, you hope, you persevere, and yet the outward circumstances remain unchanged. On the surface, it may appear as if your efforts, your faith, and your persistence have been in vain. The breakthrough you long for seems distant, and the clarity you crave seems forever out of reach. It is in these moments, the quiet, unremarkable, often lonely stretches of time, that the hidden work of God is at its most profound. Though invisible, it is powerful, shaping the trajectory of your life and preparing you for what lies ahead. The hidden work of God often goes unnoticed precisely because it does not manifest in dramatic, immediate ways. Like the roots of a tree growing deep beneath the soil, it occurs out of sight, beneath the surface of visible events. You cannot measure it by external indicators or immediate outcomes. Yet it is in these invisible moments that the foundation for lasting growth is laid. What may appear as stagnation is, in reality, preparation for a season of fruitfulness that will eventually become unmistakable. One of the key aspects of this hidden work is character development. God uses silent seasons to refine, strengthen, and purify aspects of your heart and mind that might otherwise remain underdeveloped. Patience is cultivated not in moments of ease, but in the waiting and enduring of difficulty. Resilience is strengthened not when everything is smooth, but when challenges stretch your endurance and test your resolve. Humility is nurtured not when recognition is abundant, but when unseen effort and quiet obedience define your experience. Each silent day, each unanswered prayer, and each moment of uncertainty carries within it the potential for transformation that is far more enduring than any immediate reward. Consider how these hidden processes operate. When you face disappointment, unanswered prayers, or circumstances that resist change, your response shapes you. If you allow frustration, bitterness, or resentment to take root, they can limit growth and stunt spiritual maturity. But if you choose to remain faithful, patient, and hopeful, you are participating in an unseen refinement of your character. You are being molded into a person capable of handling not only the blessings to come, but also the responsibilities that accompany them. The trials of silent seasons are not arbitrary, they are intentional, shaping your perspective, your resilience, and your ability to steward future opportunities. Faith is often tested in these hidden seasons. The lack of visible progress can create doubt, anxiety, and fear, challenging you to trust beyond what is apparent. Yet it is precisely in the absence of immediate evidence that trust deepens. You learn to believe not because of what you see, but because of who God is. Your faith becomes anchored in principles, in character, and in the consistency of God's nature rather than in fleeting circumstances. This is an essential shift, for the ability to trust in the unseen is the foundation upon which enduring breakthroughs are built. It is also during these seasons that the unseen lessons of life become ingrained. When everything moves smoothly and answers come quickly, lessons are often missed. Growth requires friction, struggle, and tension. In the silent seasons, your capacity for empathy, wisdom, and understanding is expanded. You learn the nuances of patience and the subtle power of perseverance. You discover strengths and qualities within yourself that only emerge under sustained pressure and quiet reflection. In this way, the hidden work of God is preparing you not only for external achievements, but for internal maturity that will sustain them. The hidden work of God is often closely linked to preparation for future breakthroughs. Just as a seed must remain buried in the dark soil before it can sprout and reach the light, your growth often occurs in ways that are invisible but necessary. You may not see the full picture now, but the transformation taking place beneath the surface is equipping you for moments when the visible manifestation of your faith will finally arrive. Every silent moment, every period of waiting, every unanswered question is shaping you to receive more than you could have without the preparation. Patience alone is insufficient to navigate these unseen processes. It must be coupled with trust. Trust is the conscious decision to believe in what cannot yet be seen, to remain confident in the integrity of the process, and to continue investing in what is hidden, rather than abandoning it in frustration. Trust allows you to move forward with faith that your efforts, prayers, and endurance are not wasted, even if the results are delayed or invisible. It is the acknowledgement that God's timing and methods often surpass human understanding. Consider the metaphor of an artisan at work. A sculptor does not reveal the completed masterpiece at the first strike of the chisel. The early stages may appear chaotic, imperfect, or unremarkable. Only with patience, skill, and consistent effort does the final form emerge. Similarly, God is at work in the details of your life, shaping the raw material of your experiences, responses, and character in ways that may not yet be apparent. What feels disordered or stagnant today may be the quiet shaping of something extraordinary. It is important to recognize that the hidden work of God also involves preparation for greater responsibility. Breakthroughs are not simply about personal gratification. They are about positioning you to handle opportunities with wisdom, humility, and integrity. A rushed blessing without adequate preparation can falter under pressure, whereas growth during silent seasons equips you to steward what comes with discernment and gratitude. God's hidden work is as much about shaping the vessel as it is about bringing forth the blessing. Another aspect of this hidden work is spiritual depth. The more you engage faithfully during seasons when progress seems stalled, the deeper your spiritual roots become. These roots anchor you in faith, provide sustenance during trials, and allow you to draw from reserves of hope and resilience that you may not have realized were available. The quiet cultivation of spiritual depth often precedes visible achievements, ensuring that when your breakthrough arrives, it is built on a foundation capable of sustaining it. The hidden work of God also teaches perseverance and self-discipline. When the immediate results are absent, your choices become increasingly deliberate. You must decide daily to continue acting in faith, to maintain hope, and to uphold integrity even in the absence of external reward. This conscious cultivation of perseverance strengthens character and builds momentum for future success. It ensures that when opportunities present themselves, you are not only ready to receive, but prepared to act with wisdom and purpose. It is in this context that trust becomes transformative. Trust does not eliminate the waiting, the uncertainty, or the challenges of silent seasons, but it allows you to navigate them without despair. Trust is the confidence that your unseen labor is meaningful, that your endurance is cultivating resilience, and that the hidden processes of growth are equipping you for the next stage. It is the quiet conviction that God's work in your life is intentional, precise, and sufficient, even if it is not immediately visible. Faith that relies solely on visible outcomes is fragile. It is easily shaken by delays, unmet expectations, or prolonged silence. But faith, grounded in the recognition of God's hidden work, is resilient. It understands that not all progress is immediately observable, that not all preparation is dramatic, and that not all blessings are instantaneous. This perspective allows you to embrace silent seasons with patience, confidence, and purpose, knowing that each moment contributes to an overarching design that is far greater than the moment itself. The hidden work of God also invites gratitude for the unseen. Even when circumstances appear stagnant, growth is occurring in areas you cannot measure or observe. Spiritual resilience, character formation, emotional maturity, and patience are being cultivated. Recognizing this encourages appreciation for the process itself, fostering a deeper sense of trust and contentment, even amidst uncertainty. Gratitude for the hidden work shifts focus from what is absent to what is being formed. Furthermore, understanding the hidden work of God reframes the experience of waiting. What once felt like frustration becomes a meaningful phase of preparation. What once seemed like stagnation is now recognized as a critical period of refinement. The invisible becomes significant, and the silent seasons are transformed into active opportunities for growth, transformation, and deepening faith. As you continue through your own silent seasons, remember that nothing is wasted. Every moment of patience, every act of perseverance, every unanswered prayer, and every moment of faithful obedience contributes to your development. The hidden work of God is occurring in the quiet, in the unseen, and in the moments when you cannot measure progress. These are the moments that build the foundation for lasting, meaningful breakthroughs. Ultimately, the hidden work of God teaches a profound truth: transformation often precedes manifestation. What is visible is the result of what has been quietly cultivated over time. Your character, your resilience, your faith, and your endurance are being refined to align with what is coming. When the breakthrough arrives, it is not merely an event, it is the culmination of intentional, unseen preparation that has equipped you to receive it fully and steward it wisely. Therefore, embrace the silent seasons with patience, trust, and hope. Understand that the growth occurring beneath the surface is shaping a stronger, wiser, and more capable version of yourself. Recognize that character, maturity, and spiritual depth are being refined in ways that cannot yet be measured. And above all, trust that the work God is doing behind the scenes is intentional, purposeful, and sufficient for every breakthrough yet to come. Your faith is being strengthened, your character is being refined, and your preparation is unfolding in ways you may not yet perceive. When the visible breakthrough finally arrives, it will be built on a foundation formed in the quiet seasons, ensuring that you are ready to receive, steward, and fully embrace what God has prepared. The hidden work of God is the most reliable work of all. It is the silent shaping of what will ultimately flourish. Chapter 7: Unanswered Prayers and Redirection. There is a unique sting that accompanies unanswered prayers. We pray with hope, with expectation, and sometimes with desperation, believing that our desires, pleas, and requests are aligned with our needs. When the answer does not come, or when silence replaces response, it can feel like rejection. It can feel as if our prayers have been ignored, our efforts dismissed, and our faith tested beyond reason. Yet, in the grand tapestry of life, unanswered prayers are not always denials, often they are redirections. They are divine interventions, subtle pivots that guide us toward paths we may never have anticipated, but that ultimately serve a greater purpose. The first step in understanding redirection is to recognize that silence or denial is not necessarily rejection. Rejection suggests that your desire or effort is flawed, unwanted, or unworthy. Redirection, by contrast, implies guidance, a gentle steering toward a more fitting outcome than the one you imagined. It does not mean your prayer was ineffective, nor does it mean that your intention was misguided. It simply means that what you envisioned may not be the best course for you, and that a greater plan is at work. This is a challenging concept to embrace, because it requires surrendering control. Humans are naturally inclined to want specific results, to craft life according to personal vision and timing. When reality diverges from expectation, our instinct is often to resist, to feel disappointed, or to question the fairness of it all. Divine redirection asks us to release this attachment, to trust that the path we cannot see is designed for our ultimate good, even if it diverges sharply from our original plans. Redirection is most clearly understood when we reflect on the difference between delay and denial. A delayed response may feel like waiting, but it is temporary. The answer will eventually arrive, often in a way that requires preparation. Denial, or a definitive no, can feel disheartening, yet it can also be a form of protection. Just as a parent refuses a child's harmful request out of love and foresight, God's no may shield us from experiences that would hinder growth or divert us from a more meaningful destiny. Recognizing this allows unanswered prayers to be reframed not as failures, but as opportunities for alignment and redirection. History is filled with examples of unexpected outcomes that led to better purpose. Consider the life of Joseph, who faced betrayal, slavery, and imprisonment despite having dreams that foretold greatness. His prayers and hopes for immediate freedom were unanswered, and his circumstances felt unjust and insurmountable. Yet each challenge redirected him toward a position of influence where he could save nations from famine. The path he would have chosen for himself was far narrower than the one he ultimately traveled, guided by divine redirection. Another powerful example, can be seen in the story of Esther. Esther may have desired safety and anonymity, yet the circumstances of her life, a path she did not choose, positioned her to save an entire people from destruction. Unanswered prayers for ordinary life were not ignored, they were redirected to extraordinary purpose. These stories remind us that what appears as denial in the present may, in hindsight, reveal itself as the careful weaving of circumstances to accomplish something far greater than we imagined. The process of divine redirection often requires letting go of fixed expectations. When we approach prayer with rigid assumptions about timing, method, or outcome, we create barriers to recognizing the guidance being offered. Expectations are not inherently bad, but they can blind us to the possibilities that lie outside our imagination. Letting go does not mean abandoning hope or intention. It means embracing flexibility and openness, allowing the unexpected to become an instrument of growth and opportunity. Letting go is, of course, easier said than done. It can be painful to release a vision you have held tightly, to acknowledge that what you wanted may not come to pass. But the process of surrender opens space for something better, often something you could not have foreseen. Letting go of fixed expectations allows your heart to receive what is being redirected to you, instead of clinging to a path that may not serve your highest good. Faith is central to embracing redirection. Trusting that unanswered prayers are not rejections but redirections requires a belief that God's wisdom surpasses our own. It requires a conviction that unseen forces are working in alignment with a purpose that may be invisible now, but will become clear in time. Faith is the lens through which the confusion of unanswered prayers transforms into clarity, understanding, and eventual fulfillment. Redirection also cultivates resilience. When plans are interrupted, when prayers go unanswered, and when expectations are challenged, the ability to adapt becomes essential. Resilience is the capacity to recover, to adjust, and to continue moving forward even when life diverges from the imagined path. Each redirected prayer, each unexpected outcome strengthens this quality, equipping you to navigate future challenges with greater strength, patience, and wisdom. The subtlety of redirection is that it often cannot be recognized immediately. You may pray, wait, and see no apparent answer. Days, months, or even years may pass before the purpose of the delay becomes visible. This requires a long-term perspective, a willingness to believe that your efforts and prayers are meaningful, even when the results are not yet apparent. The moment of clarity may arrive suddenly or gradually, but by that time, the groundwork laid during silent and uncertain seasons has equipped you to embrace the outcome fully. One practical approach to recognizing redirection is to pay attention to signs and opportunities that arise unexpectedly. Life often nudges us toward new paths through chance encounters, sudden opportunities, or circumstances that compel a change in direction. These moments are rarely dramatic. They are subtle, easily overlooked, and require discernment to perceive. By cultivating awareness and openness, you position yourself to follow the guidance embedded in life's unpredictable twists and turns. Redirection is not about resigning to passivity. It does not mean giving up on your desires, prayers, or goals. Rather, it is an active engagement with life, a willingness to pursue what aligns with purpose, rather than clinging rigidly to personal preference. It is the recognition that the divine plan is often more expansive, more strategic, and more beneficial than what we could conceive for ourselves. Spiritual maturity deepens when we learn to navigate redirection gracefully. We begin to see unanswered prayers not as setbacks, but as invitations to trust, to reflect, and to remain faithful amid uncertainty. We develop the capacity to discern what is essential from what is merely preferred, distinguishing between outcomes that align with long-term growth and those that serve temporary satisfaction. This discernment is a hallmark of wisdom and a key aspect of spiritual development. Another dimension of redirection is the transformation of perspective. When a desired outcome is denied, we are often forced to shift our focus from what we cannot control to what we can cultivate: faith, character, relationships, and perseverance. This shift cultivates humility, deepens understanding, and nurtures gratitude for the processes and lessons embedded in silent seasons. The mind and heart expand beyond immediate desires to embrace the broader trajectory of life guided by divine wisdom. The process of accepting redirection also strengthens trust in God's timing. Unanswered prayers often challenge our sense of urgency and push us to rely on divine scheduling rather than human impatience. Each instance of waiting, each shift in path, and each missed expectation is an exercise in trusting that the ultimate outcome is worth the detour, worth the delay, and worth the effort of embracing uncertainty. It is also worth noting that redirection frequently leads to opportunities for influence and impact beyond personal gain. Just as Joseph's redirection allowed him to save entire nations, many unanswered prayers ultimately place us in positions to bless, inspire, and guide others. What we initially perceive as denial may be the vehicle through which greater good is achieved, not only for ourselves but for the wider world. Redirection magnifies purpose, expanding the impact of faith and obedience beyond immediate personal circumstances. Letting go of fixed expectations, then, is an act of both humility and courage. It requires surrendering the illusion of control and trusting that life's unpredictable shifts are purposeful. It requires believing that the road you cannot see is as real and significant as the road you imagined. By doing so, you align your heart with possibility, preparing yourself to embrace opportunities, blessings, and outcomes that are richer, deeper, and more meaningful than anything you could have planned. Ultimately, unanswered prayers are not empty, they are full of potential. They are a call to trust, to adapt, to reflect, and to remain faithful even in uncertainty. They are opportunities for divine redirection, guiding you toward outcomes that serve growth, purpose, and greater fulfillment. By recognizing this, you transform disappointment into hope, frustration into resilience, and uncertainty into opportunity. As you navigate your own experiences of unanswered prayers, remember that silence does not equal denial. Paths may diverge, outcomes may shift, and expectations may need adjustment, but the purpose embedded in these shifts is deliberate. Every detour, every pause, every unexpected turn carries the potential for growth, transformation, and eventual fulfillment. Faith in the unseen, trust in divine wisdom, and openness to redirection allow you to move forward with courage and confidence. You are being guided, even when the path is unclear. You are being prepared, even when progress is invisible. You are being positioned for a destiny that surpasses immediate desire, one that aligns with a greater plan, and one that ultimately reflects wisdom far beyond human understanding. Embrace unanswered prayers not as rejection but as invitation. Embrace silence not as absence but as preparation. Embrace redirection not as loss, but as guidance toward a future more meaningful than you could have envisioned. And in doing so, you transform every moment of waiting, every denied expectation, and every silent season into a pathway toward greater purpose, deeper faith, and a life aligned with the extraordinary plan that God has for you. Chapter 8: Learning to Listen Differently. Silence can feel like emptiness, a void where once there was connection, a space where answers should have been but are nowhere to be found. When prayers go unanswered, many assume that communication has ceased, that the divine voice has vanished, leaving only a hollow echo of hope. Yet silence is not always absence. Often, it is an invitation to learn a new way of listening, to expand our understanding of how God communicates, and to attune our hearts and minds to subtle guidance that has been present all along. Learning to listen differently is not about waiting for loud confirmations or dramatic signs. It is about cultivating awareness, sensitivity, and patience, so that the quiet whispers of purpose and guidance can finally be heard. Human beings are accustomed to signals that are immediate, clear, and unmistakable. In our daily lives, feedback is direct, emails are answered, messages are returned, results are measurable. Spiritual communication, however, rarely conforms to these standards. It is rarely a loud, unambiguous declaration of direction. Instead, it often comes in forms that are subtle, nuanced, and easily overlooked. To hear God in these seasons requires expanding our definition of communication beyond the obvious, beyond the dramatic, and into the realm of the unseen and the understated. Learning to listen differently begins with awareness. It requires slowing down the mind, quieting the internal noise, and intentionally creating space for reflection. In a world that prizes busyness, speed, and constant activity, stillness is a rare and precious opportunity. Silence, then, is not a lack of communication but a tool to refine perception. When the external world quiets, the inner senses sharpen. Thoughts, feelings, intuitions, and even subtle coincidences begin to take on significance. The moments that previously went unnoticed can suddenly reveal meaning, direction, or insight. Subtle guidance often comes in ways that challenge conventional expectation. It may be a persistent thought that refuses to leave your mind, a sudden understanding that arises during reflection, or a series of events that seem coincidental, yet converge with unmistakable purpose. These are not accidents. They are signals, hints of direction, or confirmations that require careful observation and discernment. Listening differently means recognizing that answers may not always look like answers. They may not be immediate, visible, or dramatic. They may be quiet, indirect, or even disguised as ordinary experiences. Developing this sensitivity is an ongoing practice. It requires patience, attentiveness, and humility. The more we cultivate the ability to perceive subtle guidance, the more attuned we become to the patterns and nudges that might otherwise pass unnoticed. Over time, listening differently becomes a skill, a spiritual awareness that allows us to navigate uncertainty with confidence, discernment, and grace. One of the greatest challenges in this practice is letting go of preconceived notions about how answers should appear. Human expectation is often rigid. We pray, we hope for a specific outcome, and we wait for confirmation in a form we recognize. When guidance arrives differently, we may dismiss it, overlook it, or fail to recognize it entirely. Learning to listen differently requires a willingness to set aside these assumptions, to remain open, and to interpret experiences through the lens of possibility rather than limitation. It is also essential to recognize the interplay between silence and communication. Silence is not the absence of interaction, it is often the medium through which understanding develops. It is in quiet reflection that clarity emerges, intuition strengthens, and insight is refined. The pauses between events, the unanswered moments, and the spaces of stillness are all part of the dialogue. God's communication is not always verbal or dramatic. It is woven into the fabric of experience, revealed through timing, context, and subtle impressions that require attention to detect. This kind of listening also demands trust. It is natural to feel uncertain or frustrated when guidance is not obvious, when the answers do not align with expectation, or when progress is slow. Yet trust allows you to continue engaging even in ambiguity. It is the confidence that what is unseen is meaningful, that what is subtle is purposeful, and that what is quiet is not inconsequential. Trust transforms the waiting and uncertainty from sources of anxiety into fertile ground for spiritual awareness and growth. Spiritual awareness also involves recognizing patterns and connections that may initially appear coincidental. Life often communicates direction not through singular events, but through a series of nudges that converge over time. By paying attention to repeated messages, persistent thoughts, or recurring circumstances, you begin to identify guidance that is consistent and intentional. This awareness allows discernment, distinguishing between mere coincidence and meaningful direction, between distraction and divine cue. Learning to listen differently also means embracing humility. It requires acknowledging that our understanding is limited, that our perception is imperfect, and that clarity often emerges gradually rather than instantaneously. Humility allows us to release the need for immediate certainty and to engage with life as a learning process. It opens the mind to alternative possibilities, encourages reflection, and fosters a patient receptivity to insight as it unfolds. The process of developing spiritual awareness is iterative. It involves observation, reflection, and adaptation. We learn to recognize the forms that guidance may take, to interpret subtle signals, and to integrate this understanding into decisions and actions. Each experience strengthens our capacity to perceive, interpret, and respond appropriately, deepening the dialogue between our inner life and the divine orchestration of events. Examples of subtle guidance are abundant in Scripture and in personal experience. Sometimes it is the quiet prompting to act with kindness in a situation where conflict might have arisen. Sometimes it is an inner conviction to wait rather than pursue immediate gratification. Sometimes it is the emergence of an unexpected opportunity that aligns perfectly with preparation and readiness cultivated over years. These are the manifestations of listening differently, moments where the ordinary becomes extraordinary, through attentiveness and sensitivity to guidance that is not overt but profoundly impactful. Learning to listen differently also reshapes our relationship with prayer. Prayer is no longer solely a tool for requesting answers, but becomes a medium for alignment, reflection, and receptivity. It trains the mind to recognize subtle signals, the heart to trust in the unseen, and the spirit to remain attuned to quiet nudges. Over time, prayer becomes less about urgency and more about attunement, less about demand and more about dialogue, less about immediate confirmation and more about ongoing awareness. The skill of hearing subtly does not eliminate challenges, uncertainty, or unanswered questions. Life will continue to present moments of doubt, waiting, and ambiguity. However, by cultivating the ability to perceive guidance in unexpected forms, you are equipped to navigate these challenges with clarity and resilience. You become capable of recognizing opportunity in silence, direction in the absence of obvious answers, and purpose in circumstances that initially seemed random or discouraging. Another critical element of learning to listen differently is reflection. Taking time to review experiences, emotions, and decisions allows patterns to emerge and previously unnoticed guidance to be recognized. Reflection transforms scattered impressions into coherent understanding, linking the subtle nudges of life into a narrative of purpose. Without this step, guidance may remain hidden, and the opportunity for insight may be lost. Listening differently also enhances gratitude. When subtle guidance is recognized, the ordinary moments of life become infused with meaning. Opportunities, lessons, and experiences that might otherwise have been dismissed are seen as part of a larger, intentional orchestration. Gratitude emerges from awareness, the recognition that even in quiet or challenging times, direction and purpose are being provided. In practical terms, developing this kind of spiritual awareness requires intentionality. It demands patience, stillness, reflection, and attentiveness. It asks for trust in the process and humility in interpretation. Over time, it transforms the way you experience life. The quiet moments are no longer empty. The unanswered prayers are no longer frustrating voids. The subtle impressions, recurring thoughts, and unexpected opportunities become the language through which guidance is communicated. The ultimate reward of learning to listen differently is a profound sense of alignment. When you recognize the hidden cues, subtle nudges, and silent guidance, life feels less chaotic and more intentional. You experience clarity, not because everything is explained or guaranteed, but because you are attuned to the signals that matter. The path becomes navigable, hope becomes tangible, and trust becomes resilient. As you cultivate this ability, remember that listening differently is not a destination but a lifelong practice. The deeper you engage with life attentively, the more refined your perception becomes. The quieter and more disciplined your awareness, the more capable you are of discerning divine guidance in its many subtle forms. Silence is no longer intimidating, it is instructive. The absence of dramatic answers is no longer discouraging, it is educational. And the moments that might once have felt empty become rich with insight, opportunity, and purpose. Learning to listen differently transforms how you relate to God, to life, and to yourself. It expands your understanding of communication beyond the immediate and the obvious. It strengthens patience, discernment, and faith. It turns silent seasons into periods of preparation, reflection, and growth. And ultimately, it allows you to recognize that even when the answers are not what you expected, or not what you can yet see, guidance is present, active, and shaping your path in ways far more meaningful than you imagined. By cultivating spiritual awareness and learning to listen differently, you are equipped to navigate life with a deeper sense of trust, a heightened sensitivity to purpose, and a confidence that nothing is wasted, nothing is random, and nothing is unseen. Silence is not the absence of God, it is an opportunity to attune your heart to the subtleties of His work, the whispers of guidance, and the unseen currents that are carrying you toward fulfillment, clarity, and spiritual alignment. Chapter 9: Staying Spiritually Grounded. Silence has a way of testing the very foundation of our faith. It challenges our patience, our resolve, and the stability of the beliefs we have held for years. When prayers go unanswered and guidance feels distant, it can be easy to drift into doubt, frustration, or despair. In these moments, staying spiritually grounded is not a luxury, it is essential. Grounding provides stability, clarity, and strength, allowing faith to endure even when the world feels uncertain and the heart grows weary. Maintaining spiritual grounding is not about ignoring challenges or pretending that silence is easy. It is about cultivating habits, practices, and perspectives that anchor the soul, strengthen resilience, and ensure that faith is not shaken by circumstances. At the core of staying spiritually grounded is the intentional practice of prayer. Prayer is more than a list of requests or a means of seeking immediate answers. It is a dialogue of the heart, a space where connection, reflection, and surrender converge. In silent seasons, prayer becomes an anchor. It roots you in the divine presence even when clarity or breakthrough seems absent. The act of praying does not require dramatic confirmation. The act itself cultivates trust, deepens awareness, and reminds you that you are not navigating life alone. Prayers spoken in quiet reflection, in the midst of uncertainty, or even in desperation, serve as a lifeline to the faith that sustains you. Reflection is another cornerstone of spiritual grounding. Taking time to pause, consider, and evaluate your experiences allows insight to emerge from the silence. Reflection transforms uncertainty into learning, disappointment into understanding, and waiting into preparation. Through reflection, you can identify patterns of growth, recognize subtle forms of guidance, and process emotions that might otherwise cloud judgment or weaken resolve. It is through these reflective moments that the unseen lessons of life reveal themselves, allowing you to emerge from silent seasons with wisdom, perspective, and renewed purpose. Journaling is a practical tool that complements reflection and prayer. Writing thoughts, emotions, and observations provides a tangible record of your journey, helping you track progress even when outcomes are delayed or invisible. Journals serve as mirrors of spiritual development, revealing shifts in perspective, growth in resilience, and the ways faith is evolving over time. They allow you to articulate doubts, celebrate victories, and process the quiet but significant transformations occurring within. By putting your experiences into words, you give form to what is often intangible, creating a resource that strengthens grounding and reinforces belief. Community is also vital for staying spiritually anchored. Silence can isolate, and isolation can erode faith. Engaging with a supportive community, whether through church, study groups, mentorship, or trusted friendships, provides encouragement, perspective, and accountability. Sharing experiences of doubt, reflection, and endurance with others reminds you that you are not alone, that struggles are part of the shared human experience, and that collective wisdom can illuminate paths you might not perceive on your own. Community acts as both support and guide, helping to maintain balance and prevent spiritual burnout. Avoiding isolation is particularly crucial in silent seasons. When the mind and heart are left to wrestle with uncertainty without support, the risk of discouragement and spiritual fatigue increases. Regular engagement with others, intentional conversations about faith, and participation in communal rituals or study practices maintain connection and continuity. These interactions reinforce grounding, offer reassurance, and provide the relational context in which faith can flourish even in the absence of immediate answers. Spiritual burnout is a risk for those navigating prolonged silence. It can manifest as fatigue, disillusionment, or emotional depletion, making prayer and reflection feel like burdens rather than sources of strength. Awareness and intentional practices help prevent burnout. Scheduling regular time for spiritual exercises, incorporating rest, and allowing space for honesty with God and oneself create resilience. Recognizing limits and caring for the emotional and mental aspects of spiritual life ensures that grounding is sustainable, even in extended seasons of challenge. Building resilience in your belief system is intertwined with these practices. Resilience is not simply enduring, it is the capacity to thrive amid uncertainty, to recover from disappointment, and to remain steadfast when outcomes are unclear. Each practice, prayer, reflection, journaling, community engagement, strengthens resilience, cultivating faith that is flexible yet unshakable. The resilience developed during silent seasons equips you not only to weather current challenges, but to navigate future trials with confidence, perspective, and hope. Resilience also emerges from perspective. Maintaining spiritual grounding requires seeing beyond immediate circumstances and understanding the broader narrative of life and faith. Faith is not measured by instantaneous outcomes but by endurance, character development, and alignment with enduring principles. By anchoring belief in the consistent truths of God's nature, the lessons of Scripture, and the values of faith, you create stability that is resistant to the turbulence of unanswered prayers and silent seasons. Perspective allows you to interpret challenges not as setbacks but as integral components of growth and preparation. Discipline is an additional layer of grounding. Spiritual discipline is the intentional practice of sustaining habits that reinforce faith and clarity. It may involve setting aside daily time for prayer, dedicating moments to reflective reading, engaging in communal worship, or committing to acts of service. Discipline ensures that even when motivation wanes or feelings of uncertainty arise, faith remains active and engaged. It is a deliberate choice to maintain alignment with spiritual values, reinforcing stability and continuity during periods when external confirmation is absent. Another key aspect of grounding is gratitude. Even in silence, finding elements of life to appreciate nurtures hope, strengthens perspective, and maintains connection to what is enduring. Gratitude shifts focus from what is missing to what is present, from disappointment to recognition of subtle blessings. It transforms the internal narrative, countering discouragement and reinforcing faith in the unseen processes of growth and preparation. By consciously practicing gratitude, you cultivate an inner stability that sustains belief and fortifies resilience. Integration of these practices, prayer, reflection, journaling, community, discipline, and gratitude, creates a framework for spiritual grounding. They interact synergistically, reinforcing one another and providing a foundation that remains firm even amid silence and uncertainty. Grounding is not about avoiding challenges. It is about equipping yourself to face them with clarity, patience, and endurance. It is about creating a center within that remains steadfast, no matter how turbulent the external circumstances. Grounding also nurtures flexibility. Faith rooted in stability does not collapse when outcomes differ from expectation. Rather, it allows adaptation, discernment, and openness to redirection. When life shifts in unexpected ways, a spiritually grounded person can respond with grace, confidence, and hope, trusting that growth, lessons, and divine orchestration are at work even in the absence of immediate clarity. Grounding transforms uncertainty from a source of fear into a space of learning, reflection, and preparation. In addition, staying spiritually grounded reinforces alignment between belief and action. When anchored in faith, you are able to act in ways that reflect conviction rather than emotion. Choices become deliberate, measured, and informed by principles rather than impatience or fear. This alignment nurtures integrity, strengthens trust in oneself and God, and reinforces resilience, creating a self-reinforcing cycle of grounding that sustains faith across challenges. The importance of staying spiritually grounded cannot be overstated. Silent seasons, unanswered prayers, and periods of uncertainty are inevitable aspects of life and faith. Without grounding, these experiences can erode confidence, diminish hope, and disrupt spiritual growth. With grounding, however, they become opportunities for growth, refinement, and deepening trust. They become the moments in which resilience is cultivated, character is strengthened, and connection to God and purpose is maintained. Ultimately, staying spiritually grounded is about cultivating a center that remains steadfast despite external uncertainty. It is about engaging in intentional practices, fostering community, maintaining discipline, nurturing gratitude, and developing resilience. It is about recognizing that silence does not indicate abandonment, that unanswered prayers do not equate to failure, and that spiritual growth often occurs most profoundly when the visible confirmation is absent. Grounding transforms silence from a source of anxiety into a fertile space for growth, insight, and enduring faith. A spiritually grounded person does not live in fear of silence or disappointment. Instead, they navigate life with awareness, patience, and trust, knowing that every moment contributes to growth, every challenge shapes character, and every unanswered prayer holds the potential for preparation, alignment, and eventual fulfillment. Grounding provides clarity when uncertainty abounds, strength when trials persist, and hope when the future is unseen. Faith, in its truest form, is not the absence of struggle or silence. It is the ability to remain connected, resilient, and purposeful in the face of it. Staying spiritually grounded ensures that, no matter how long the silence, no matter how delayed the answers, and no matter how challenging the journey, your belief remains anchored. You are prepared to receive blessings when they arrive, equipped to navigate trials as they unfold, and strengthened to endure periods of waiting with patience, hope, and unwavering faith. To stay spiritually grounded is to embrace life fully, to trust the unseen processes, and to cultivate inner strength that is impervious to temporary silence or uncertainty. It is the anchor that prevents drift, the compass that guides action, and the foundation upon which enduring faith is built. Through grounding, silence becomes a teacher, waiting becomes purposeful, and faith becomes resilient, steadfast, and alive. Chapter 10: Trusting the Bigger Picture. Life often challenges us with questions that have no immediate answers. We pray, we hope, and we act with the belief that clarity will arrive, that guidance will be unmistakable, and that the path will unfold according to our expectations. Yet, reality frequently refuses to conform to our timelines, desires, or understanding. Moments of silence, unanswered prayers, and delayed outcomes are inevitable, and they often leave us wrestling with doubt, fear, or frustration. It is in these moments that trusting the bigger picture becomes not only a spiritual practice, but a lifeline for maintaining hope, resilience, and perspective. Trusting the bigger picture means embracing the truth that life unfolds according to a design that often exceeds human comprehension. It requires acknowledging that our vision is limited, that our understanding is finite, and that the universe, or the divine hand guiding it, operates on a scale and timeline far beyond our own. This does not mean abandoning ambition, action, or hope. It means recognizing that our desires and plans are part of a far greater story, one in which every challenge, delay, and unanswered question has a purpose, even if it is not immediately apparent. One of the most profound aspects of trusting the bigger picture is learning to accept that not all answers come immediately or clearly. Humans are conditioned to seek resolution, clarity, and certainty. We crave answers that fit neatly into our understanding, explanations that align with our logic, and outcomes that meet our expectations. Yet spiritual and life truths often operate differently. Some answers are revealed gradually, their significance becoming apparent only over time. Others remain hidden, intentionally obscured, requiring faith, patience, and perseverance. Accepting this is not a resignation, it is an act of courage, a decision to hold space for uncertainty while maintaining connection and hope. The capacity to see life from a long-term spiritual perspective is central to trusting the bigger picture. Immediate circumstances, no matter how intense or challenging, are often just fragments of a larger narrative. The difficulties we endure, the delays we encounter, and the unanswered prayers we offer may all be contributing to growth, preparation, and alignment with a purpose that is invisible in the moment. By expanding our perspective beyond the immediate, we cultivate patience, resilience, and the wisdom to understand that temporary discomfort can lead to permanent transformation. Surrendering control is another essential element. Human beings naturally want to direct the course of life, to shape outcomes, and to ensure certainty. Yet the bigger picture often demands that we release this illusion of control. Surrender does not mean passivity, it means acknowledging limits, trusting in unseen processes, and allowing life to unfold according to wisdom beyond our own. It is a conscious choice to act with integrity, faith, and purpose, while understanding that not every variable is within our grasp. This surrender creates peace, clarity, and a deeper alignment with what is meant to be. Maintaining faith amid uncertainty is a discipline. Faith is not the mere absence of doubt or the presence of immediate results. It is the steadfast commitment to trust in principles, in truth, and in purpose when outcomes are delayed or unclear. This requires repeated practice, choosing belief over despair, hope over frustration, and patience over anxiety. Each act of faith reinforces the capacity to trust the bigger picture, gradually transforming uncertainty from a source of fear into a space of growth, insight, and preparation. Peace emerges naturally from this trust. When we surrender the need for immediate answers and align ourselves with a broader perspective, the tension created by unanswered questions begins to ease. Peace does not require understanding everything or predicting every outcome. It arises from confidence in the process, in divine wisdom, and in the knowledge that life is being orchestrated with precision beyond our comprehension. In this peace, the heart is free to remain steadfast, resilient, and open to opportunities and lessons that might otherwise go unnoticed. Consider the seasons of personal growth as a metaphor for trusting the bigger picture. Just as a seed is buried in darkness before it sprouts, life often places us in circumstances that feel isolating, frustrating, or confusing. These seasons are not empty, they are formative. While we cannot see the roots growing underground, the transformation is real, preparing the seed for eventual blossoming. Likewise, challenges, delays, and silent periods in life are shaping character, refining faith, and positioning us for outcomes that are far richer and more meaningful than we could have designed ourselves. Trusting the bigger picture also requires reframing setbacks and disappointments. What initially appears as failure, rejection, or loss may, in reality, be a step toward alignment with purpose. Life rarely unfolds in straight lines. Curves, detours, and obstacles are part of the process, often carrying lessons, preparation, and redirection that will become clear only with time. By choosing to interpret challenges as opportunities for insight, growth, and preparation, we cultivate resilience and maintain perspective even in difficult seasons. Spiritual awareness is reinforced through this trust. By focusing on the long-term narrative, rather than immediate outcomes, we sharpen our perception, discern meaning in subtle experiences, and recognize guidance in ways we may have overlooked previously. Trusting the bigger picture allows us to interpret life events through a lens of purpose rather than chance, of intention rather than randomness, of growth rather than stagnation. This perspective transforms the way we approach prayer, reflection, and decision-making, fostering alignment with the overarching flow of life. Patience is an integral component of trust in the bigger picture. Waiting is never passive. It is active engagement with the process of growth, understanding, and alignment. Patience allows the invisible work to unfold without resistance, honoring the timing and wisdom of a process that often exceeds human expectation. With patience, we can endure silence, navigate unanswered questions, and sustain faith, knowing that progress is occurring even if it is not yet visible. Equally important is resilience. Trusting the bigger picture does not shield us from difficulty, but it equips us to face challenges with fortitude. Resilience emerges from the repeated practice of maintaining faith amid uncertainty, of acting with integrity despite ambiguity, and of continuing forward even when outcomes are delayed. Each challenge becomes an opportunity to strengthen spiritual endurance, emotional stability, and clarity of purpose, ensuring that faith remains unshaken. Gratitude further reinforces this trust. Even when outcomes are unclear or progress is slow, recognizing the blessings, growth, and opportunities present in life shifts focus from scarcity to abundance, from frustration to perspective. Gratitude nurtures peace, reinforces hope, and affirms the continuity of guidance and purpose, even when the immediate picture remains incomplete. It transforms waiting and uncertainty into a space of recognition and appreciation. Surrender, patience, resilience, and gratitude together create a foundation for unwavering trust. This trust is not blind. It is informed by experience, reflection, and recognition of the ways life has unfolded previously. It is built on the understanding that past challenges often led to unexpected blessings, that delays provided preparation for future opportunities, and that every unanswered question carries within it the potential for growth, insight, and transformation. Life is a mosaic composed of moments, decisions, experiences, and unseen processes that together form a coherent whole. Trusting the bigger picture means stepping back, acknowledging that the complete image cannot yet be perceived, and believing that every piece has a role to play in the ultimate design. It is faith in motion, an active engagement with life that embraces uncertainty while remaining confident in the intentionality and wisdom guiding the process. Even when outcomes differ from our expectations, trusting the bigger picture fosters flexibility. Life rarely conforms perfectly to our plans, Yet by cultivating trust, we are able to adapt, pivot, and embrace opportunities as they arise. Flexibility, combined with grounded faith, ensures that our energy is not wasted in resistance, but invested in alignment, discernment, and purposeful action. This balance strengthens both spiritual and practical navigation through life. One of the most liberating aspects of trusting the bigger picture is the peace it brings in not knowing. There is freedom in releasing the need to control, predict, or understand every outcome. Peace is not the absence of questions or uncertainty. It is the confidence that life is meaningful, purposeful, and guided, even when clarity is delayed. This peace allows the heart to remain open, the mind to remain focused, and the spirit to remain resilient, sustaining faith through every silent season, every unanswered prayer, and every unexpected turn. Trusting the bigger picture ultimately reshapes our relationship with life itself. It transforms struggle into preparation, delay into refinement, and uncertainty into possibility. It allows us to act with intention while releasing the illusion of total control, to engage with hope while accepting ambiguity, and to maintain clarity even when the path is not fully visible. Through this trust, faith becomes a steady anchor, a compass for navigating complexity, and a source of enduring strength and serenity. As you reflect on your own journey, recognize that every challenge, unanswered prayer, and period of uncertainty contributes to the larger narrative of your life. Even when clarity is absent, purpose is at work. Even when outcomes differ from expectation, alignment is unfolding. Even when the present feels incomplete, the whole is taking shape, guided by wisdom beyond your comprehension. Trusting the bigger picture allows you to participate fully in life without being consumed by anxiety, doubt, or frustration, cultivating faith, hope, and peace in the unseen. In conclusion, trusting the bigger picture is a practice of surrender, patience, resilience, gratitude, and perspective. It is the willingness to believe in the unseen, to act with integrity amid uncertainty, and to maintain faith even when clarity is delayed. It allows peace to emerge in not knowing, confidence to thrive amid ambiguity, and hope to flourish even in silence. By embracing this trust, you recognize that life is intentional, guided, and purposeful. Every moment, whether silent, uncertain, or challenging, is contributing to a narrative of growth, alignment, and fulfillment that is far greater than what we can see. Faith that trusts the bigger picture is enduring. It is steady in the face of delay, resilient amid uncertainty, and unwavering even when the path is hidden. This faith transforms life from a series of anxious responses to a journey of active engagement, reflection, and alignment with the divine orchestration of purpose. By trusting the bigger picture, you are not surrendering hope, you are embracing it fully, recognizing that the unseen is as meaningful as the seen, and that the ultimate outcomes are worth every moment of patient faith. Through trust in the bigger picture, life's unanswered questions become fertile ground for growth. Life's silent seasons become spaces for refinement. Life's uncertainty becomes an invitation to deepen faith, cultivate patience, and embrace the unfolding narrative with confidence. And in doing so, you discover that peace, resilience, and purpose are not dependent on immediate clarity, but are cultivated through trust, perspective, and engagement with the enduring, intentional design of life itself. Conclusion: when silence becomes sacred. Silence is often the hardest part of faith. It is in the stillness that doubt creeps in the quiet that frustration grows, and in the waiting that impatience tempts us to question everything we believe. Yet what if we began to see silence not as a sign of absence, but as a presence so profound that it reshapes our understanding of connection, trust, and growth? What if the moments in which God seems silent are not empty at all, but sacred spaces of preparation, transformation, and unseen guidance? This is the heart of the journey we have explored in this book, learning to embrace silence, to recognize its purpose, and to allow it to deepen faith rather than diminish it. To reframe silence as sacred requires a fundamental shift in perspective. Many of us approach unanswered prayers with the expectation of immediate results, clear answers, and visible confirmation. When these do not materialize, it is natural to feel disappointment, confusion, or even betrayal. However, silence does not equate to abandonment. Just as the roots of a tree grow deep underground before the first shoots appear, the silent seasons of life are often moments of profound unseen growth. They are opportunities to strengthen character, cultivate patience, and refine faith in ways that immediate answers never could. In this sense, silence becomes an essential part of the spiritual journey, a quiet teacher whose lessons are subtle yet transformative. Reflecting on how silence strengthens rather than weakens faith requires courage. It demands that we examine the internal processes by which belief is nurtured. Faith that relies solely on external confirmation is fragile. It bends with every unanswered question and every delay. Faith grounded in trust, patience, and alignment with divine purpose, however, grows resilient in the face of silence. When prayers go unanswered, we are invited to anchor our belief in the consistency of God's character, rather than in the fluctuations of circumstance. We learn that faith is not merely a reaction to outcomes, but a conscious commitment to trust in the unseen. Unanswered prayers are not wasted prayers. Every plea offered in sincerity, every moment of hope lifted in faith, every prayer spoken in quiet desperation, contributes to the shaping of our inner life and the alignment of our path. Just because the result is delayed or manifests differently than we expected, does not diminish its significance. Like water seeping into the soil to nourish roots that are hidden from view, every prayer cultivates unseen growth. The act of praying itself strengthens connection, sharpens discernment, and opens the heart to guidance that might otherwise go unnoticed. Even when the answer is silence, the prayer has worked. It has done its job in shaping the person who prays, and in preparing them for the next stage of their journey. To trust without clarity is perhaps the most difficult lesson of all. Humans crave certainty, evidence, and reassurance, yet spiritual growth often requires embracing ambiguity. Trust in this context is not blind. It is informed by experience, reflection, and the recognition of past patterns of provision, guidance, and transformation. To trust without clarity is to affirm that life has purpose even when we cannot perceive it fully, that growth is occurring even when it is invisible, and that outcomes are being orchestrated with wisdom beyond our understanding. It is the conscious decision to hold faith steady when the external world seems uncertain. Hope thrives in the acknowledgement that silence is not the end of the story. Seasons of waiting, unanswered prayers, and apparent inactivity are not signals of failure, they are openings for growth, reflection, and preparation. In the quiet, our resilience is strengthened, our perspective is broadened, and our ability to navigate life's challenges with grace and faith deepens. The narrative of faith is not measured solely by immediate results, but by endurance, maturity, and alignment with purpose over time. Recognizing this allows hope to persist, even in moments that feel barren or incomplete. One of the most profound truths of silent seasons is that the greatest transformations often occur quietly. Change rarely announces itself with fanfare or drama. Like the steady shaping of stone by wind and water, or the imperceptible growth of a seed before it blooms, transformation unfolds in the spaces that are unseen. While we may long for immediate signs, sudden breakthroughs, or dramatic answers, it is often in the quiet that our character is refined, our understanding expanded, and our spiritual roots strengthened. These are the moments in which faith becomes mature, resilient, and enduring. Silence, then, is not a barrier but a conduit. It is not a punishment, but an invitation to deepen connection, cultivate patience, and embrace trust in unseen processes. It teaches us to slow down, to listen differently, and to recognize the ways in which guidance, growth, and purpose manifest subtly, gradually, and intentionally. Silence becomes sacred when it is understood as part of a divine rhythm, a necessary pause that prepares us for what is to come. To integrate the lessons of sacred silence into everyday life, we must cultivate awareness and intentionality. Daily reflection, honest examination of our emotions and responses, engagement with supportive communities, and consistent practices of prayer and meditation strengthen the ability to perceive meaning in quiet moments. Journaling thoughts, feelings, and insights can reveal patterns, confirmations, and guidance that may otherwise go unnoticed. These practices transform silent periods from times of anxiety into spaces of active spiritual development and alignment with purpose. Acceptance is another essential aspect. We cannot always control timing, circumstances, or outcomes. The act of surrender, releasing the illusion of control while maintaining faith, allows peace to emerge. Acceptance does not mean resignation. It is the recognition that the process itself is meaningful, that growth is occurring, and that life is unfolding according to a design that surpasses our comprehension. In accepting the sacredness of silence, we allow space for transformation, preparation, and the quiet shaping of our character, heart, and spirit. As we close this journey, it is important to remember that silence is not a void, it is fertile ground. It is a classroom, a sanctuary, and a workshop for the soul. Each unanswered prayer, each delayed response, and each moment of uncertainty carries within it the potential to refine our faith, strengthen our character, and deepen our trust. The sacredness of silence lies in its ability to prepare us for the visible manifestations of our prayers and the tangible outcomes of our hopes. It is the hidden work that makes breakthroughs sustainable, lessons enduring, and faith resilient. Ultimately, silence is a reminder that life's greatest transformations are rarely immediate, obvious, or dramatic. The quiet shaping of heart, mind, and spirit often precedes the clarity, blessing, and fulfillment we seek. In these sacred pauses we learn to trust, to endure, to grow, and to recognize the subtle ways in which guidance and purpose are at work. We come to understand that unanswered prayers are never wasted, that waiting is never meaningless, and that faith deepened in silence is faith strengthened for a lifetime. Let this understanding inspire hope. Let it encourage perseverance. Let it remind us that the absence of sound does not imply absence of presence. Silence can be sacred precisely because it holds within it the work of preparation, the seeds of transformation, and the promise of a future that surpasses our imagination. As you move forward, carry this lesson in your heart. The quiet seasons are not a pause in life. They are the hidden architecture of your destiny, shaping you for the purposes, blessings, and opportunities that lie ahead. The sacredness of silence is a gift to those willing to embrace it. It calls us to trust in the bigger picture, to find peace in not knowing, and to remain steadfast in faith even when outcomes are delayed or unclear. It invites us to see waiting not as emptiness but as preparation, and to recognize that the greatest transformations often happen quietly, away from immediate view, unnoticed but profoundly effective. In this sacred silence, faith is nurtured, hope is sustained, and life is shaped in ways that are lasting, meaningful, and divine. So, when the world feels quiet, when prayers seem unanswered, and when the path ahead is obscured, remember this: silence is not the end of the story. It is an invitation to listen differently, to trust more deeply, and to allow the sacred work of growth and transformation to unfold within you. Embrace the silence, honor it, and let it strengthen your faith, fortify your hope, and prepare you for the life you are yet to fully see. In the sacred silence, the extraordinary is quietly at work. Thank you for reading this book. I hope you enjoyed it. Please remember to leave us a review. TM Light. Disclaimer. This book was created with the assistance of artificial intelligence. While every effort was made to ensure the accuracy and relevance of the content, readers should note that this cannot be considered professional advice. Readers are encouraged to apply their own judgment and consult experts where needed.